Welcome to the Stoned Heen View, a podcast series which interviews a range of sport club representatives and leading professional sport club personnel during the COVID-19 period. We find out what these people are doing during the health crisis, with some of our most popular sports seasons postponed. This week is episode 54. I'm your host, Mark Heenan, and today it's actually a first. We're actually going to speak to two guests. Yes, we've had people on this program that have been special guests. I've had Mark Stone on as a co-host. I've had special co-hosts, people like Shane Cuttajar and Ben Carbonaro and a few other people along the journey as well. But this time we're going to speak to two people in particular from a senior women's football club, and they are the senior coach and also the senior women's football club captain. So without further ado, it's a great pleasure for the first time on the Stoned Heen View to have two guests in Drysdale Football Club senior women's coach Stuart Craven and Hawks senior women's football captain Prue Davies to the Stoned Heen View podcast. Thanks for joining us on the Stoned Heen View, Prue and Stuart.
Thanks for having it.
Thanks for having us, Mark.
Not a problem, and it's great to have you on board during this period of post-COVID and back up and running with the sport. Look, obviously it's been an interesting sort of year and a half, particularly for the Drysdale Senior Women's Football Club, which is known as the Lady Hawk, and was actually lucky enough to witness your particular game on the weekend, which was against Torquay down at Torquay. And I might just start off with Prue here. How good was it to come back and be a player, and you're the senior women's captain, to come back into that fray of playing after such a long layoff, which saw you guys not play last season, but have a really good buy-in with the Drysdale girls and have a fantastic win?
Yeah, I was pretty nervous before the game, actually. Didn't really know what to expect. It's been such a long time since we've played a game of footy. We've had a couple of practice matches, but you can never really compare them to the season. The vibe in the rooms before the game was incredible. I don't think that we've ever seen the team so up and about before. So that really got us going at the start of the game. And yeah, once the siren went, it was just all systems go and everything worked in our favour, and we had a really great game. So, yeah, it was so much fun. Almost forgotten how fun it is actually playing footy when you're out there with your teammates. So yeah,
it was interesting because when I was down there taking some photos, I actually spoke to Stuart Craven about a little bit about, like, I think we've gone a little bit too well here. Like he was saying that at the three-quarter time when I was walking off the field. And I guess in some ways, Stu, like what was sort of the expectation going into the first game? Because, you did coach the team throughout the previous years. I'm talking 2019, and you got to a grand final against North Geelong. And like, was there any level of expectation to win on the weekend and win well?
Not expectation. You always want to win, but it's very odd after the length of time off that we had. We're a completely different team. We've turned over a lot of players, and we're back to square one. And looking at them, I didn't know what to expect from our team, and you could definitely say the same about all the other teams. I know. I would think Torquay would have been in a very similar position where, it's such a long time and all the clubs had turned over, and I really didn't have any idea. I was expecting it to be a very tight, close match, and I would have been, really happy with just a good performance. And no, I certainly wasn't expecting the win the way it was, and I certainly wasn't expecting the team to play as well as they did. They were great. I couldn't have asked for much more.
Prue, what was it like, particularly at the end of 2019 going into 2020? I mean, I've had a little bit to do with the Ocean Grove side of things, and, their women's team, they don't have a team this year, and obviously would have got some other players from the Ballerine as well. But how was the engagement, not so much sort of 2021 leading into January up until April, but engagement throughout 2020, because there was a period, and we saw junior football in the AFL Barwon region have a 3-week window. We didn't see that with the women's. We did have a start date, and it didn't eventuate because of the restrictions. I mean, how hard was it to motivate the playing group and keep in touch? Were you doing Zoom chats? How were you sort of communicating with the players throughout that period?
Yeah, definitely. It wasn't easy, and everyone dealt with sort of the lockdown and with COVID in their own way. Some people were working, some people were out of work, so everyone's situation was different. But we're a pretty tight-knit group, so we were doing things like, our first thing that we did was a goal kicking challenge. So we had to go out and kick goals or be be creative with how we would put a bin out and kick some footies into the bin and record that and then send them in. And we had a little competition with that. So that sort of got us going for a few weeks. And then we did some Zoom workouts. We did a couple of game nights as well with the girls. And then when we could train, we would just catch up on the Sunday and have a kick of the footy and sort of mainly just catch up. Yeah. And the engagement was really good. Sometimes you wouldn't hear from people for a while, but then you'd send a message out to the girls and just, well, how's everybody doing? We did a cooking show as well, actually. That was one thing that we did. So me and another teammate at the time did a Zoom cooking show, and we sent it live on Instagram, and that was a bit of fun as well. So yeah, we tried to be as creative as we could. It can be hard at times when you're talking, through a computer, but fun nonetheless.
And then obviously there were periods of, last year where people had to do different fitness, your gyms and your pools weren't open. And I suppose, things like maybe stair running at the beach might have been a little bit more popular than normal because we, live in the region and we didn't have a 5K buffer zone. We could actually, travel a little bit. And whilst we couldn't go into state and those sorts of things. So, I mean, Stu, were you doing much in the way of, helping the girls sort of achieve their fitness goals whilst there wasn't a season in play?
Yeah, absolutely. In the hard lockdown, we, of course, didn't know how long it was going to end. So I was actually, we just went with the business as usual type of thing. So I was sending out a full training program on the normal nights we'd be training. I tailored it so you could do it with a maximum of 2 people or do it on your own. Had a lot of exercises and just ran through a whole training night for anyone who wanted to do it, right? Warm up and do some skills stuff and some fitness stuff and a bit of fun as well. So yeah, every night there was a session there for anyone who wanted to do it. Yeah, just posting them online and came up with some different drills for people who didn't have the right equipment. You had people lifting weights with milk bottles full of water and kicking soccer balls around and skipping and all sorts of different stuff. And yeah, just put it all together just to give those who wanted to do it the opportunity to do it, which was really good, especially and really encouraged because we're always allowed to train with one other person. So really, really encouraged everyone, this is in the rules. You're allowed to exercise with someone. Go out there and stay in touch and make the most of it. So yeah, no, we pushed it pretty heavy all the way through. It was good.
Now, Prue, just go back to a little bit about your footy career, and probably one of the questions I'd like to ask is here, considering your football experiences over the last period of time, and I believe you and your husband went to North Queensland. You started your senior footy career with the North Cairns Tigers in Queensland, and then also too, you coached the Bermagui Breakers, I believe, in the Orgal women's team. And really interesting Bermagui because it's actually, the beach actually backs onto the Surf Lifesaving Club, and there's a cricket pitch and a footy ground right there. So an interesting, lovely little spot. But do you sort of wish in some ways that you sort of almost traded in what you did last year and go off interstate playing? Because other players in the Ballerine Football League went interstate last year to go and play. So was that ever tempting to think, oh, well, AFL Barwon aren't going to run a season of women's footy. I've played interstate before. I could do this. I could have done this last year.
Oh, it's a nice thought, but I worked all through lockdown, so I wouldn't have been able to get away anyway, unless the footy club was willing to foot the airfares every weekend. But it's a nice thought, and it would have been awesome to go back to Bermagui and just see my old mates and have a kick of the footy there, because it is a beautiful oval. We've got the beach right there, and then this gorgeous footy oval. But no, I never got the opportunity to go back there. So unfortunately, work comes first.
Absolutely, and look, it's great that you've had those experiences. I guess, Stu, your experiences, I mean, you've had a pretty distinguished career in football. You've played at a pretty good local level. You represented, before you came to Drysdale, you came to Powerhouse, and we're going to ask a few little banter questions later on about some of those nicknames and all that. But I guess in some ways, what brought you to senior footy in terms of women's? I mean, obviously, you've got a wife that's heavily involved in the football club at Drysdale, and you've got a daughter that's from what I understand, is a really promising sports person, not just in football, but also on cricket. I mean, why is it that you wanted to make that leap of faith instead of, you're a legend of Drysdale and a life member, but why take on the challenge of senior women's coaching?
Well, when we started with the first team, when Greg Collier was president, and Greg was always a big fan of doing things and didn't necessarily, do them first and work out how to do them later. So when we decided to have a women's team in about 3 days, we went from not thinking about it, have a meeting, to committing. We had a training session within a week of the decision. So nothing was in place of who was coaching or anything like that. And but I just walked away from senior footy and the committee time there. So I thought I was finished with footy, and went down to the first training session just because I wanted to make sure, someone was going to be there to run it and make sure it went all right. And did that, and found it very enjoyable, and the attitude of the new players, and it was very exciting and refreshing, and I just really, really enjoyed it, and thought, I might stick around and I'll get involved until they put someone on. But just kept enjoying it, and really, it's very different to the men's football, and I was looking for something different, and it was exactly what I wanted. I still, wanted to stay involved. Plus, I was really, really passionate about having a female footy program at Drysdale. A lot of that based on my daughter was played in the first team, and she was getting the age where she needed a pathway. So I wanted that for her, and I wanted it for everybody. It was just great at that very first night to see how many women in Drysdale wanted to play footy. So we're committed to that then and there. And 5 years later, we're still working away at it.
And Prue, you came obviously to Drysdale, and you were part of that senior women's team. You were playing in a different league, I think in the Ballarat League in 2017. You were third in the league, best and fairest, and you were selected in the Goldfields Team of the Year. You're also a runner-up in the best and fairest at Drysdale. So I suppose a two-part question here is, what makes you such a good leader and a player at Drysdale, and how much of a respect, I suppose, not only for Stuart, you have a male in general to take on the role of senior coach with, 25 women, or how many are out there, ranging in different age groups?
Yeah, it's a couple of big questions there. So what makes me, I don't know, I just love footy. It's something that I've always had a passion for, even when I was a little kid. I wish that I got to play footy all through juniors. I played one season of junior footy for a small town called Waiai, the Waiai Bombers in country Victoria. I played one season of fourths, and then couldn't play anymore. And it was just always my number one sport. Didn't matter that I wasn't playing, I was always out in the backyard doing it. So I've always had a love for it. And then I guess just being a leader is just because I have so much passion. So I get to training and I'm up and about, no matter what sort of happens during the day. If you've had a bad day or whatever, you go to footy and it just cheers you up. So I'm just excited to be at footy no matter what the circumstances are. So I guess being a leader just comes off the back of that, just having the passion for the game and wanting other women around me to have that same passion, whether they've played for a long time or whether they're having a go for the very first time. And we've certainly got a mix of that at Drysdale. We've got some women that I don't think have ever watched a game of footy before in their life coming down and having a crack. And I love it. I think it's so incredible that they're choosing to play a sport that is so, so difficult, and they're putting their bodies on the line and doing that. And they're almost doing that. And I thank them for that, because they're letting me live out my childhood dream. Even if it's not a passion for them, they're coming down for the social side. It's allowing me to do what I love doing. So in terms of Stu coming on, we've worked together since season 1, and having someone that is so committed and so driven to get the women's program going, I can't thank Stu enough. Words can't even describe sort of how I feel about Stu, and there's been times where we've probably butted heads. No, not tearing up, but we've butted heads, but that's great as well, because it means that we're both fired up about the team and the club. And even playing with Tess for the first time on the weekend was such a proud moment for me, because I coached during under 15s, and we also had eight old under 15 girls playing in the team on the weekend, and it was just incredible being able to now play alongside these girls. And credit to Stu for that, for sticking by us and coming back year after year, no matter where Tess is with her footy. And she's obviously at Falcons and doing so well this year, and he still comes back and puts in his time and effort every week.
And Stuart, when it comes back to you, like during COVID, I met you through a a business event recently. And I thought, geez, what's going on here? I looked at your name tag and thinking, there's no Merv Jennings on here now. And you had a different role change. You're now working at Matchworks. And was that, I suppose, of the period of the last sort of 12 months, was that probably one of the biggest adjustments? I mean, we can talk about things off the football field as well, and we're going to have a little bit of banter as well. But you've had a significant role change. I mean, and I get told this from someone that shares the same initials as you, that he's a Drysdale, bit of a cricket legend, if you ask me. And I think you know who I'm talking about. You did his signing for his cricket background. Yes, Shane Cuttajar. I guess in some ways, was that the biggest adjustment or the biggest role change that you've had? And talented art person, you've gone into employment networking. I mean, what prompted that change?
Just a change. It really was. I had a great time at Merv Jennings. I couldn't have asked for more. I was there 15 years. It was a great place to work, but I'd just been there doing the same thing. And, I had just a choice of whether I was just going to stay there until I retired or whether it was time to take on another challenge. And I decided it was time for a change, and it was pretty fortuitous. It came about pretty quickly and pretty easily, which was great. So it had just a real feeling about meant to be type of thing. So it's been really, really good. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's every reason I did it for it has worked out exactly how I want. The challenge and the difference is great, and it's just really reinvigorated me, and really glad I've done it.
And just touch on some of those challenges during COVID outside of footy, Stu, and just talk about some of those things that you were forced to do. Like even watching football was a bit different as well. Like, you weren't you couldn't go to the games or anything like that, even if it was AFL, because you had to watch it on the TV. But just other things in life, what did you find? I mean, we know that you're talented in a lot of ways, but did you pick up any other different skills?
Not so much. My guitar playing probably improved a little bit, but
pretty good on your left foot,
certainly not enough. Yeah, Tess couldn't train, so I had to kick the footy with her every single night for a good 2 hours, and I actually blew out my right knee, so I had to learn to kick left foot, so my left foot's improved an awful lot. But no, all in all, I mean, it wasn't, as far as lockdowns go, it was annoying, but compared to what the rest of the world was going through, and, I was lucky enough to be working from home, and Kaz was still working from home. The one big thing, we missed our... hanging out with our friends who, lived in Melbourne, because they weren't allowed to do anything. So I didn't see them for a very long time, and really missed the connections down at the footy club. Not even the people you're really close to, like your close friends you still kept in touch with, and you could do a Zoom meeting or something, but they're just people who are just part of that footy club community that I see every Thursday night and every Saturday afternoon. And you might be best friends, but you spend 20 minutes together and you have a beer and you just catch up and find out how life is and what's going on. And I didn't see, there's people like that I see twice a week that I didn't see for 12 months. And it was a real feeling of disconnection there. And it was all around that football community.
And Prue, the challenges that you faced from a non-footy perspective during COVID, just touch on the work that you do and your role with that. As you said, I think there was quite a bit of demand for the work that you do in that sense. And were there any other sort of skills that you picked up during that period?
I work as a pastry chef at Born and Bred in Geelong. And we didn't shut at all. We were really busy actually through COVID. So the hard thing for me, I guess, every day felt the same. I felt there was nothing to look forward to. There was no footy training to go to. There was no mate's house to go to on the weekend. So it was come home, cook dinner, go back to work. And it was that day, that same thing day in, day out. It just started to really sort of wear you down mentally.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, absolutely Groundhog Day. And even the weekend, you'd come around and you're like, we've got nothing to do. Thankfully, we built a house through lockdown. So that kind of kept us going and it gave us something to look forward to. So, yeah, my husband and I moved into our house in November last year. So we actually, built the house.
Is that in Grove or Drysdale?
In Curlewis. So, yeah, near Drysdale, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Sick of the commute from Ocean Grove to Drysdale. So I had to move closer to the footy club.
Absolutely. And also, too, the Belchers Oval, meaning, that's on that side, I suppose, as well. But I guess a little bit of banter time here. You worked for Merv Jennings, and And I noticed that there's a couple of things about you. When you played at Powerhouse, I think there was an image of you with one of the club legends, and you had, I don't know if there was like a little own segment. It was called At the Bar with the Prez, a series of interviews with the Powerhouse club legends. Where did the nickname Marv come from? M-A-R-V. And tell us about this celebrity crush. Apparently you have a celebrity crush on Rebel Wilson. Is that because she's got a lot of money or what?
Oh, who doesn't love Rebel? She's an absolute legend. You gotta love her. She's funny and she's unique, and she's she's her own person. She doesn't change for anyone. So no, I think she's just a classic. And she's an Aussie, and she's done really well overseas. Just think she's an absolute legend. And you'll never ever know why they call me Marv. Mark, that is not happening.
Oh, we can't divulge on here. Okay, all right. But I think you could just touch on this. You would have had some happy times at Powerhouse, and I know. I don't know if you can give us the abbreviated version, but the move obviously to Drysdale is where you sort of finished your playing days. But the opportunity to be involved with Powerhouse, pretty big, pretty sort of, I suppose, suburbanised local club in Melbourne in that sense. But do you still catch up with these people at the other clubs? I believe you've played in Warragul as well, but like even just during COVID, like you would have developed a lot of great friendship networks at those clubs that you previously played for before coming to Drysdale.
Yeah, time at Powerhouse was pretty special. It wasn't the highest standard of footy, but it was just really social, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Totally amateur. Again, I'd been playing in Warragul and taking their footy pretty seriously, and it was just. I've always really enjoyed the social side of the footy, and I don't know how I'd go these days. A bit too serious for my liking, not quite enough fun. It was always about having as much fun as we could, and they know how to have fun at Powerhouse. Don't worry about that. So 6 awesome years there, made great friends. One, the only premiership I ever won was there as well, so special bond. And through COVID, we had some fantastic Zoom meetings just with the Powerhouse boys, get a dozen of them, just put out the invite and everyone would join in and stay for as long as they want. They'd go from like 6 until finished up at 4 in the morning one time, and just fantastic, and really good to help out and see everyone. Again, they were doing it much tougher in Melbourne than we were. They were really in hard lockdown, so it was good fun to rub it in about going for a walk and kicking the footy and that sort of stuff where they couldn't do anything at all. And when the pubs opened, send them photos of a nice full pot of Carlton draft when they were still stuck at home, and just enjoy that. But the connections you make through footy are pretty special, and especially if you're lucky enough to win a premiership, I'll be mates with those guys forever.
Absolutely. And I guess in some ways, Prue, considering 2019, the club has always been on the up, and you've seen a lot of the girls develop in different ways, and you've got some newer players, seen a change of personnel post-COVID, but 2019 was still considered a pretty good year. You got to the grand final. But if you do win a grand final this year, is there a chance that when you get up on stage, you might be singing "We Are the Champions"? We actually do a rendition of that.
Absolutely. You have no idea how many times I've played that over in my head, holding a cup, singing "We Are the Champions." It's got to be up there with one of the things that I want to do most. So, unfortunately, I've only ever played in losing grand finals, so maybe one day I'll get there. I am getting a bit older, though, so I don't know how much longer I've got left in me. I'll be limping out there if I have to, though, to hold that cup up.
Absolutely. And look, you got to be in it to win it, as they say. So really wanted to thank you for both being on the Stoned Heen View podcast for episode 54. And we have had a Drysdale guest on last year. We had Daniel Jull. He was one of our first episodes, and a few other Drysdale sporting royalty on the Stoned Heen View. So first of all, I wanted to thank the club for getting behind this concept. I know that the Hawks Nest podcast is also on as well, and you've done some things with them, and I really wanted to appreciate the opportunity to you've come off the training track to talk to me tonight, and you're getting prepared for round 2, and well done. Obviously a big win over Torquay previous weekend, but you move on to the next hurdle. And good luck for the remainder of the season. And thanks for joining us on the Stoned Heen View podcast.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having us, and thanks for promoting women's footy.
Thanks for having us, Mark. Really do appreciate it.
Not a problem. And obviously you can get in touch with the Stoned Heen View. It's coming to you at the moment, as we would know, through our Apple Podcasts forum. We're also on Spotify, and we're also on our launching platform, which is Podbean. So you can get in touch there. We've also got a business edition as well, and something that Stuart knows about is that we're going to be talking to people a little bit about COVID during this period. So you can write us a review not only on Apple Podcasts, but we've got our business edition. So it's just something that we're doing in a non-sporting opportunity to talk about what people have done during COVID, and it's a great way to promote business for 2021. We've got a YouTube channel, and we've also got a Twitter account at Stoned Heen View. So until next time, we're actually going to talk to someone in the local football umpiring department next week and some of the challenges they're faced during COVID. So we look forward to that, and it's great to bring you this episode with the two guests in Prue Davies, who is the senior captain of the Drysdale Football Club senior women's, and also the senior coach of the women's at Drysdale in Stuart Craven. We'll talk to you soon on our next episode for episode 55, and it's bye for now. Thank you.